I would take the Raiders here. Listen, they went to Dallas and won 2 weeks ago.
They did.
This is a potent offense. Now, the Raiders are uneven. They've got an interim coach. They've had tragedy. Yeah. Of course they're uneven. But they've got firepower. And, in the Raiders game against Washington, they had a pass interference call not go their way. That was a go either way game. So that Washington game was in the balance late. So don't look at it as a discouraging loss. Washington's playing well, and the Raiders had a chance to beat them. So this is one of my stronger plays. I like the Raiders +9.
Now, how much will depend
also
on...
a divisional game. Those are always closer.
Yeah. Darren Waller missed the Washington game. Maybe they were holding it. He was like 75%. They held him out.
Yeah.
He'll need to return. Kenyon Drake, the number 2 running back, got knocked out of the Washington game. So they're really beat up. I just wonder, we saw the last meeting with these two. The Raiders just said, we know how to stop KC, but we're not going to do the too high safety look. And they got trounced, gave up 41. Do you think they'll change back and say, hey, let's do what Denver did?
Well, it's very difficult to trounce a division rival twice in a year.
Yeah.
So the Raiders were undressed the first time they played. It's the only game in 2 months that Patrick Mahomes truly flourished. So, my takeaway here is it'll be fairly high scoring. I think it's a 30-24 game. I like the Chiefs, but we have to be honest about what's happening with Mahomes here. So Kansas City's identity has always been explosive offensive plays. They no longer run the ball. They don't get the cheapies over the top. Their O-line's playing well, but Mahomes mechanically is off. So I think they've lost their identity. The Chiefs' identity today, and there's nothing wrong with having a defensive run game identity, but they don't run the ball.
Yeah.
So you have an excellent defense with an offense that's lost its way. What is their offense? I can't lay 9 in a division rivalry when a month ago you blew them out. So you're going to get a supercharged Raiders team with a little chip on their shoulder that I think can keep it close against an offense in Kansas City that really right now is doing nothing particularly well.
I want to drill down on Patrick Mahomes. 2 straight games, no touchdown passes, first time in his career. And I just wonder, earlier in the season, he wasn't taking what the defense was giving. He was forcing stuff. He wanted those big plays, and he was turning the ball over quickly. I just wonder, has Andy Reid fully turned it around so you trust that offense? We're seeing a total of 52.5. That seems very archaic. There's no way, the old Chiefs could do that. But the new Chiefs, winning in a different way, almost Belichickian, right? Belichick changed, hey, we're going to do 2 tight ends, we're going to run the ball, then we're going to get Randy Moss. The Patriots kept changing. I wonder if we're seeing a new Chiefs, the way they're winning.
It's hard to unsee things. Right now, today, New England is a much more productive offense than Kansas City.
Yeah.
With Mac Jones over Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
So it's hard to unsee Kansas City's fireworks show of an offense. It's bad. Yeah. And it's been bad for 7 of 8 weeks.
Kelsey's looking a little creaky. Tyreek Hill can't get loose. He had the bad drop and the fumble. I worry about that being a big spread. So I'm kind of with you. I think the Raiders at 9 would be a good look in a divisional matchup.
So yeah, despite what Raider Nation thinks, it's not all over. We're not going to lose every single game of the year just because we lost a couple recently. And it's great to see Colin Cowherd come out here and just state some obvious facts, which is the fact that Patrick Mahomes has not looked that hot this year. The Chiefs offense has not looked hot this year. Look at Patrick Mahomes' numbers here. In terms of yardage, the only game that he has that has cracked over 400 yards out of 13 games is the Raiders game. So the Chiefs are now relying on their defense, which was the worst defense in the first half of the season, and they haven't been able to rely on their offense at all pretty much the whole entire year. And it's pretty funny that NFL is trying to say, oh, Patrick Mahomes just needs a third option in order to get going. You keep seeing people on NBC say that, ESPN. A third option? You already have Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and a good defense as of late. How many more options does Patrick Mahomes need to be an elite QB? Apparently, he needs 3 or 4. Josh Gordon, Demarcus Robertson, and McCole Hardman isn't enough. Meanwhile, Derek Carr is out here slinging it to Deshaun Jackson, Zay Jones, and Hunter Renfrow. Darren Waller might not be back. He might, if he does play, that'd be great. But in terms of wide receivers, that's what Derek Carr has. And the offensive line hasn't looked good at all this year besides a select few games against bad teams like the Eagles. But look at these categories here in terms of passing. Derek Carr, 2nd in the NFL in passing yards, 3,663. Patrick Mahomes, 5th in passing yards, 3,384. Big time throws, BTT. This is an interesting stat. This means balls that were placed perfectly in key critical moments. They're almost considered clutch throws that PFF quantifies. And you got 34 from Derek Carr leads the NFL in big-time throws compared to any quarterback in the league, more than Tom Brady, Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes, 20th in big-time throws. That's just straight up according to PFF. Really interesting stat. And by the way, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is 20th in big-time throws with 15 of them. Derek Carr is number 1 with 34 of them. Really crazy when you think about the disparity of weapons. Patrick Mahomes needs a third or fourth option. Who's going to be the third or fourth option to get the Chiefs' offense going? Meanwhile, Derek Carr is leading in big-time throws with Zay Jones, Hunter Renfrow, and Deshaun Jackson, who just joined the team like 3 weeks ago. And also, you can't say that Derek Carr is just checking the ball down all the time. His yards per attempt is 5th in the NFL at 8.1 yards per attempt. Meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes is ranked 17th in the NFL, tied with 3 other quarterbacks at 7.1 yards per attempt. So Derek Carr is airing the ball out more than Patrick Mahomes. That's just a fact. And it really is odd that Colin Cowherd, out of all people, is more hopeful about the Raiders in this Sunday than a lot of Raiders fans. Colin Cowherd has more faith in our team. And who knows, maybe you guys can say fans deserve to withhold optimism. But at the same time, why not just root for the team? Why not root for everybody to be successful? And why not believe that it is possible? And I do believe it is possible, especially with Derek Carr and some of these numbers that he has this year with pretty poor weapons. He doesn't really have that good of weapons, especially when he doesn't have Darren Waller. Patrick Mahomes is all hype, dude. Like, I feel like people only like him because he has, the weird hair and everything, right? He throws the ball sideways. He does like a no-look pass. He has like insanely good weapons that have been around since 2017 on the same team. Obviously, he's going to look pretty good. He's with Andy Reid, who's been a great coach for decades in the NFL. We had a great coach who's been a great coach for decades in the NFL, but, he got canceled, so we don't have that coach right now. I guess the real question will be if the offense can get it together, because if you look throughout the whole entire season, even the last time we played the Chiefs, the game was not out of reach. The game became out of reach more so in the fourth quarter. You saw the defense make a couple stops in the first half of the game, and the problem with this offense for the whole entire year is the fact that they cannot get going early. Even with John Gruden, they cannot get going in the first half. You see the offense become more aggressive only in the second half. Derek Carr did great in the third quarter against the Washington football team. The offense did great. We went deep, took some shots, and it seemed like once we started becoming aggressive, things really opened up for us. However, I really do feel like our receivers just don't have enough time with Derek Carr, and I think it's quite unfortunate. I guess the reps that we had with our receivers were heavily oriented to the first team players, because it seems like Zay Jones and Bryan Edwards just can't get their timing down with Derek Carr, despite being with the team for multiple years. I don't really know, what is the cause of this? Is Zay Jones and Bryan Edwards just unable to get open? Are they having miscommunications with Carr where they're not clear on which route to run because they haven't had enough first team reps? Or are they just unable to fight for the football with contested catches? That could be true. Zay Jones has 5 contested catches that have come his way, and he has not reeled in any of them. Contested catches are some of those, jump balls that you fight for and whatnot. Zay Jones, 5 attempts at that, has not come up with any of them. All of his catches have been clean when he's open, not having to battle for the football with a defender in the air. However, one bright spot about Zay Jones and Bryan Edwards is they have not had any drops this season, both of these players. And I was actually very surprised to find that out. And it makes you wonder, okay, so what is the problem with the offense? Is it solely the play calling? Obviously, the offensive line is a problem. And it sucks that the offensive line is a problem in the pass game, especially because that means that we have to get rid of the ball quickly. And when you have to get rid of the ball quickly, you ultimately have to throw shorter passes. So Derek Carr is trapped in this scenario where, because of his poor offensive line, he's having to get rid of the ball quickly, and it's having to be shorter. But what's so interesting is, despite all of that, he is still leading the NFL in yards, and he is still leading the NFL in big time throws. And to me, that's amazing. That shows that despite all these problems, the Raiders have been able to still scheme some people open, and they have still been able to take some shots down the field. But it needs to continue, and it needs to be more consistent. Obviously, the bulk of Derek Carr's big time throw numbers and deep throw numbers came earlier in the season. So You have week 2 against Pittsburgh, 5 big-time throws there. 4 against Miami, 4 against Baltimore. Those were all in weeks 3 and 1. And then you had them in the Chargers game, Chicago, which is earlier in the season. As we've come into later in the year, you've only seen Derek Carr have 1 to 2 big-time throws a game. And when you look at Derek Carr's numbers, his lowest yards for the season was that unfortunate Chargers game early in the year with Gruden, with Ruggs. And when you look at all of our victories, victory against Baltimore, 435 yards, 382 in Pittsburgh, 386 yards against Miami, 341 in Denver, 323 in Philadelphia, and 373 in Dallas. It's very clear that in every victory, Derek Carr has thrown for several yards. I mean, that's been the recipe to success. And all those victories that we have just mentioned, you have over 300 yards. However, I will say in this past game against the Washington football team, the offensive line wasn't completely the issue. In the Chiefs game, it definitely was. And it's funny because in the Chiefs game, I think it's pretty clear that you could see there's just an insane amount of pressure, especially inside under John Simpson. And that led to 3 sacks in the game and Derek Carr being hurried a ton. But in the Washington football team game, only 10 dropbacks under pressure. Dallas, you had 16 under pressure, probably because you had to play in overtime, so you get a longer game there. 14 against Kansas City last time. You know, pressure is a problem, but it wasn't as bad last week, and the offense still couldn't really get anything going, only getting 15 points. Even when looking at the film, it's hard to decipher whether it's Derek Carr's fault or the receiver's fault or the play caller's fault. It's really difficult to decipher because in some of these routes that you see, in some of these plays that you see, in a majority of these plays, we don't know who the first read is, who's the second option. We don't know what plan was, what the Raiders were trying to do. Sometimes you can read between the lines and figure it out, but for the most part, when you look at the tape, and what I've seen recently is there's just no options available for Derek Carr. There are some risky options when you look at certain receivers, and when he has made some attempts to Zay Jones, to Bryan Edwards, when they are one-on-one or when they even are double covered, the ball placement and the position of the receiver have just not been in sync. And it's a question of whether, Derek Carr sometimes it seems like he's protesting and arguing that the receiver wasn't running the correct route. You don't really see it happen the other way. You very rarely see a receiver get frustrated with the throw that Derek Carr delivers. I've seen Waller a couple times when it was too high. There was one game, but yeah, you don't really see much protest from Waller because he's usually double covered, so he's not open most of the time anyways. So this leads me to believe, yes, obviously no one's going to challenge Derek Carr's authority on this team, but I just feel like it's either one or the other. Either the receivers are not running the routes correctly and not where they're supposed to be, or Derek Carr are off target. Those are the two options. And by looking at the film, it's hard to argue that he's off target based on the body language and also based on just how accurate of a QB he is. He has 34 big-time throws. Derek Carr, when he wants to, can put a ball exactly where he needs to be. The problem with him is, yes, under pressure, he doesn't throw that well. He throws as an average quarterback when he's under pressure, especially when you look at the numbers. And he's not somebody who's going to break a tackle when he's getting sacked and run a 20-yard gain. Although he has had some big runs pretty recently, that's just not him. He's not Lamar Jackson, right? That's not what Derek Carr is going to do. I just wonder if maybe the playbook has become very constricted at this point without John Gruden. In the Giants game, I noticed that whenever we would audible, our offense was on the field, the Giants defense was communicating so well, and it just felt like they knew exactly what we were going to do all of the time. And I've seen that happen over the past 4 or 5 weeks. It just seems like the other defense knows exactly where we're going with the football. They know that we're limited to just Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. And especially as of late when Darren Waller's been out, I mean, it's just been even worse. But if the Raiders don't win this game, things can get really ugly very quickly. We're entering a different part of the season after this game. After week 14, we're going to be looking at 4 regular season games left for the Las Vegas Raiders. And that's the time when people are going to start looking out for themselves and looking out for their future and their job prospects. That's the time when you're going to see receivers maybe try to argue like, hey, it's not my fault. I'm going into free agency in the offseason, and I don't want people to think that it's my fault if this QB is not on target with me. Or you're going to see a quarterback who's a really talented veteran quarterback say, hey, I'm gonna let the audience know, since I have 1 year left on my contract and I could be traded, who knows, and I could even test free agency in a year. I'm gonna let the audience know that receiver didn't run the right route, so I'm gonna make a face and do a gesture with my hand, right? That's when you'll see a running back get frustrated maybe and say, hey, there's no hole for me to run here. Or you'll see an offensive line get frustrated. Hey, we think we gave you enough time. And then maybe you'll see coaching staff who don't know what the future of their job's going to be in the offseason. Maybe they'll start to say in the press conferences, well, this player made this mistake. You saw Greg Olsen in the press conference today say that Derek Carr didn't identify a safety in the nickel. He slipped in that quick comment. I noticed it right away. You know what? I'm even going to just play it real quick right now because I think it's really important.
Greg, it seems like you guys hasn't been at your best when you're pushing the ball downfield this year. How have you seen defenses adjust to that, and what are there ways where even if a team is just trying to prevent that you can still sort of try to push in that area?
Yeah, I think there's been a variety of reasons for it, and whether it be a breakdown or, as you saw last week, Derek couldn't find a nickel safety. There just have been different reasons for it, but we'll still create ways to get it down the field.
Right. And so I just think if the Raiders don't win this game, it's going to start getting ugly. And what's also going to happen is the fan base, I think, is not going to be able to take it anymore. The fan base has been abused this year, and it's not all the Raiders' fault, and it's not all Mark Davis's fault. But, I get into the Gruden stuff, and obviously Henry Ruggs the cherry on top. I think the fans are going to be really upset because you just see L after L. How do you keep momentum? How do you try to argue that, the playoffs are in sight? In my view, we can still get in with 7 L's, but that's just one more game, so we'd still have to win out if we lost to the Chiefs against tough teams like Cleveland, like the Chargers. If the Raiders win this game, then everything changes. I mean, everything completely changes if the Raiders win this game. Then the Kansas City is going to be sitting there at 8-5, and the Raiders are 1 game away from tying Kansas City for the division, and they go in and face the Chargers and can make it even with them as well. Obviously, it might not be likely, but it's definitely not impossible. The Raiders could win this game still, and that's why I'm glad to see people like Cowherd mention that. When the Raiders won in Arrowhead in 2020, nobody expected them to win that game, and they did, and they defied the odds. You saw them defy the odds this year against Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Nobody thought they'd be 3-0 in the 2021 season heading into Week 4. And they've picked up some good wins against teams they should beat also, like the Broncos and the Eagles. Not to mention the defense is still a pretty great defense besides it stopping the run. And the Chiefs have started to run the ball a little bit more, but historically have not been a run-heavy team under Patrick Mahomes. So let's hope that we can have some advantages there. By the way, people can't say, oh, Derek Carr, is he going to do well in the cold? Well, guess what? It's going to be like 60 degrees in Arrowhead, so that shouldn't be a problem either. I don't know. I think either way, it's going to be a really good game. I think the Raiders are really determined to win this game. It's crunch time, and the Raiders seem to do better under pressure. I don't know. I'm excited for the game. Let me know what you guys think, if you guys think the Raiders could still win this game. I definitely do. Especially with the spread, obviously, I think they could cover there if it's a 9-point spread. But I also wonder, could they catch the Chiefs slipping? The Chiefs have slipped all year. They have a lot of momentum right now because they've won several games in a row. And the Raiders don't have any momentum, but they're hungry for a win. And honestly, the receivers have had more time with Derek Carr. That seems to be the main problem. Not a lot of drops, incompletions, nowhere to go with the football, not a lot of drops, and not a lot of sacks as of late outside of the Kansas City game. So it seems like we just need time and reps with the receivers and the quarterback, and that has happened steadily throughout these few weeks. You've seen some progress despite the fact that we haven't picked up some wins. I definitely think this team is improving every single week, and perhaps we can catch the Chiefs slipping. I'm going to be rooting for the Raiders no matter what, and I'm going to hope they succeed, and I'm going to believe they will succeed because you know what? They've exceeded expectations before, and Derek Carr, as we looked at the numbers earlier, deserves a lot more credit for what he's done this year despite all these obstacles, having far more big-time throws and yardage than Patrick Mahomes, quarterback who has all the help in the world, not only from his team, his coach, but also from the referees in the league. Hats off to Derek Carr. Let's hope for a good game. My name is WiFiWillie. I'll see you there.